Days I've been traveling. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Hello, Thrivers. If you're back here, you've been here before, thank you for going on this journey with me. Today, I am talking about resistant carbohydrates. So, if you have not heard about them, today would be a good day for you to learn a little bit about them. If you have, then I hope that you would pick one or two things to add to your list of knowledge encyclopedia. What are resistant carbohydrates? Resistant carbohydrates are basically carbs that you consume that resist being broken down in the small intestine. Instead, they go down to your large intestine and they get fermented. And due to that process of fermentation, we all learn about fermentation and the importance of consuming fermented foods. This is the way that you can create your own fermented foods naturally. And so, consumer resistant carbs will allow you to um, create this fermented food within your own body, so to speak. So, this is a health hack that research is showing now. If you have to consume carbohydrates, because like me, I'm a plant based person, and so it's very hard for me not to consume carbohydrates. So, these are some of the things you can do to consume carbohydrates, and I'll give you some examples of things that are high in resistant carbohydrates. So, what that does is it turns your carbs into fiber. So, fiber rich foods essentially. So, you can either consume fiber or you can consume your carbs and then lie to your body and get your body thinking that this is just a high fiber diet and it will do the same job that fiber does in your body. So I'm going to share some of the benefits of consuming resistant carbohydrates, and I'm going to give you some examples of resistant carbohydrates to incorporate into your diet if you're not already consuming them. And or if you are consuming these foods but you're eating them wrong, these are the ways you can do to get the most for your buck. Okay? So, what are some benefits of consuming resistant carbohydrates? One, it's improving gut health. The essence of our gut is our second brain, right? Everybody's learning this now. The science is out. Your gut is very important. It's pertinent to your mental health, it's pertinent to your overall health. So, if you want to improve everything, you've got to improve your gut. And because this is now turning into fermented food, we know the benefits of fermented foods as for our gut health because they're feeding this microbiome, they're feeding the bacteria in your gut, and they are helping you in healing that gut. Okay, so fermented foods are very beneficial because they're promoting healthy bacteria. Second thing is, I was talking about glycemic control, controls your blood sugar. So everybody is talking about how we need to avoid carbs. If you're into the keto movement, you know carbs is a big problem. I tried doing the vegan keto, and trust me, it limits you so much. There's really not much you can consume. So, this is a way you can try and limit your carbs without limiting your carbs because your sugar level doesn't get to skyrocket. You can try to maintain some level of plateau and with carb consumption. So, better glucose levels when you consume foods that have uh, more resistant carbohydrates, okay? Which is essentially foods that are more higher in fiber or pretend fiber, if you will. What else does it do? It helps with insulin sensitivity. Again, we're trying to cut down the glycemic index, so it's going to make the insulin more sensitive, meaning it's taking up more or breaking down more of the carbs and again maintaining your glucose level. You're also going to have better sugar control, which basically I'm saying the same thing again. Better glucose sensitivity or insulin sensitivity means better um, blood sugar essentially in the long run. Okay. Another thing is if you can control your sugar, we've learned a lot about glycemic index and your overall health, your glycemic index and resistant carbs and their effects on your gut. And if you have improved gut health, you're going to improve your glucose. If you improve glucose, because a lot of diseases today are associated with insulin resistance. So if you improve insulin sensitivity, you're going to improve those conditions such as weight loss. So if you're trying to lose weight, you will get a lot of benefit with improving your glucose consumption, i.e., incorporating more resistant carbohydrates. What else can you benefit from? Um, I've talked about overall health, but also heart health. So you're going to see the value in your heart health, and you're also going to see a value in overall colon cancer reduction or risk of colon cancer reduction. Because again, when you have better gut health, you have better chances of avoiding any form of colon cancer. And so, what are some examples? This is the kicker. This is the main thing, the main reason why I wanted to have this conversation. I wanted you to understand the importance of um, having resistant carbohydrates in your diet. But more than anything else, I need you to understand that most of your day to day foods, you can consume them in a way that improves your overall health. So, biggest example, again, I'm looking at it from this angle. If you're diabetic, if you have weight that you're worried about, if you have any kind of concerns about your health, if you have heart problems, if you have liver problems, if you have anything that is bothering you, IBS, things that are affecting your gut, you should consider manipulating your diet a little bit. It tends to help. Majority of people really just need to tweak their diet and they can improve their health overall. So, what are some of these foods that I want you to consider incorporating or consuming more of, or at least changing how you consume them? First and foremost is green plantains. As Africans, we consume a lot of green plantains. Green plantains cooked is high in fiber and high in resistant carbohydrate. So you want to consume green plantain more so than ripe plantain. Ripe plantains we all love, but it really doesn't have as much fiber as compared to the green plantain. Second thing you can incorporate or do better at, which is the one thing that actually blew my mind when I first heard about this, right? It's rice. Yes, I know. We all know that rice is not good for us. You shouldn't eat rice. It's really bad. It's very high in carbs and all these wonderful things. But this is the thing that makes me really think, because when you see a lot of these Asians, they eat Chinese, they eat rice all the time. I'm like, how come they eat rice all the time, but then they don't gain weight and they tend to be healthy? Today a lot of people are incorporating more Western diet, so it's not the same as it used to be. But this is it. I've noticed that they tend to eat cold rice. Like sushis are cold rice. If you're eating a lot of like the Korean dishes, the rice and the pasta are cold, or you'll find warm vegetables and things like that, but they eat colder rice. I'm like, oh, so that's what it is. So that's your secret. Instead of just cooking your rice and eating it immediately, you cook your rice and then you cool it down. Even if you warm it up later, you still get the benefits. So instead of cooking and eating immediately, cook and cool, then consume, and you would get the same benefit. Again, it goes to your large intestine and ferments and then gives you all of the great benefits as opposed to being digested from your small intestine. So, cooked then cooled rice is high in resistant carbs. Same thing with cooked then cooled pasta. I mentioned that already. And potatoes. So you cook the potatoes and you cool the potatoes, or you cook the pasta and you cool the pasta, you're going to get the benefits. Okay. So cooking then cooling, highly beneficial. And they would at least keep that glucose normal, like under control. So your glucose is not going from 120 220 before you eat to 280 after you eat, or you go from 80 to 190. Like, we don't want these type of fluctuations just because we ate. So the best way for you to check is typically when you eat, you wait 2 hours and you check your glucose level. It's going to give you a good number. And these days, people are wearing like the um, glucose monitors on them, so you can always see the fluctuations and the changes that are happening. What you don't want is your glucose level to spike after you eat a meal. And so cooked pasta, then cooled, cooked rice, then cooled, cooked potatoes, then cooled, and then legumes, lentils, beans, chickpeas, all those are high in resistant carbohydrates. Same thing with like sorghum or millet, they're high in resistant carbohydrates. I mean, these are foods that we grew up watching and we grew up eating traditionally. These are normal foods that we consume, but now we've kind of gravitated away from them. Again, maize. Maize, not corn, because maize is those white, like large uh, corns, I guess. These days, they're genetically modified and they have these baby little things that are super sweet. That's not what I'm talking about. Maize is the traditional, large looking corn. I don't know how else to describe it. I know what maize is. And if you grow up on the continent, South America, any of those places, you've seen them, you know what they look like. They're larger and they're harder. They're not this soft and sweet um, corns that we have today. Okay, so consuming maize is also very high in resistant carbohydrates. And also, um, chia seeds, flax seeds, they're high in resistant carbohydrates. Unripe papaya, a lot of cultures, they get the green papaya or pawpaw, as we grew up knowing. You get it, you peel it, and then you cook it. Just that, just like we do with plantain, you can do papaya or pawpaw. Those things are also very high in resistant carbohydrates. And lastly, cashews are supposed to also be high in resistant carbohydrates or starch. Yeah. So essentially, what is my goal today? My goal is to get you to understand that some of the foods you already consume on a consistent basis that you're afraid to consume because you're diabetic, that you're afraid to consume because you don't want high carbs, you can consume in moderation, but you can do that by either heating and cooling the food or specifically picking the ones that are high in resistant carbs, because resistant carbs or resistant starch does similar job as fiber, and it goes down to your large intestine, ferments and feeds your bacteria and helps you build more of the positive or good bacteria as opposed to the bad bacteria, which would keep your glucose under control, help with your glycemic index, and help with your insulin sensitivity. That's your goal, because if you have any kind of health issue, what you want to do is keep that under control. Every research today is talking about the importance of glycemic control, because um, we're finding out that a lot of the diseases that are categorized into multiple different things, Alzheimer's or heart disease or diabetes or cholesterol, like all of them have to do with insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance. So, what we want to do is change this resistance, make insulin more sensitive, take up more of the insulin into the muscles, and then help our bodies to maintain our glucose levels to prevent any kind of spikes. Those things are going to transform your health tremendously. Okay, I hope you learned something today. I hope that this adds value. And if you have any questions, you can please reach out to me. You can leave a comment. What um, are you going to do different as far as your carbs or starch consumption? Another hack that you can add to this, on top of you making your foods more resistant, you can also, they say, clothe the carbohydrate, right? So instead of eating carbs by itself, you eat carbs with some fat. So I tend to incorporate maybe say avocados when I'm eating, or some people would suggest adding some margarine or butter on your meal because it's gonna help um, slow down the absorption of the carbohydrate. So again, anything to delay your body from absorbing too much carbs at the same time would help keep your insulin level under control. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you soon. Take care and go out and keep thriving and evolving, because what we need to do is transform our health and understand that we have the power and we can take control of this. I had a conversation with a friend today who was recently diagnosed with diabetes and has already been put on insulin. And I'm like, you don't need to be on insulin. What you need to do is make some changes because, like I've talked about here in the past, you can cure diabetes. You don't have to be a prisoner of any kind of diagnosis. You can take power into your hand and turn your life around. I hope that you learned something today and tell me some things that I missed that I can learn from as well. See you soon. Ciao.